Hi, Billy the Artist here, and we're back with another how to draw video. And today we're doing Dash from The Incredibles. We have already done Four of the Family, and Dash is the last one that we're going to do. We have done Jack, we have done Mrs. Incredible, Helen Parr, or Elastigirl as she's known. And then we've also got Mr. Incredible, and we have Violet. And again, if you check out those, if you check out the How to Draw playlist, if you like and subscribe, you'll be kept up to date with all of the new videos that I'm doing, with all of my art, whether it's how to draw, all the art stuff. And do check out the previous Incredibles videos. But we are going to draw in my centre line, and like I say, we should be able to get the centre line drawing in, just to divide the page up into quarters before we get busy drawing Dash. Now again, how quickly we kind of do this, I'm not going to dash and be as quick as Dash is in the actual film, but we are going to draw him as quickly as possible just for fun. And remember, the longer you spend on a drawing, the more detail you can put in. But I'm just doing these to teach you the basic techniques. Now again, here we have Dash. So I am going to put in some little marker points, kind of the top of his head, and we'll do the boxes. If you check out how to draw anything, the link is in the cards and the descriptions. It shows you how I use boxes very quickly and simply to place in rectangles, triangles, all different shapes, and they help you to build up a drawing. So again, his belt, even though it isn't perfectly horizontal, we've just drawn a rectangle there and drawing a rectangle for his belt. Kind of goes all the way down to the bottom here, his left foot. So here we've got a triangle for his left foot, and then all of his legs. He's quite a thick set little fella who can run very quickly. But we've got here, we need bit of a box with a triangle in for his right foot, and then we've got a triangle coming up here for his leg, and then this one is going to be there, and then we've got his shoulder lines kind of come off the top, and we've got his right hand kind of comes out to here. So we've got a bit of a triangle, bit of a cone shape, and put a little box in there for his right wrist, and then we want a rectangle going up for his shoulder. He's kind of ready to run, isn't he? And then on the top of his right shoulder here we've got a little box for his wrist, and then going out to his elbow, it's kind of past halfway. So you got from the edge of the paper to there, you've got a little bit of space, and we can just increase him out. Now his Incredibles logo is just a bit of an egg shape, so I'm just gently knocking that in there quick with an ellipse or an egg shape, and a rectangle there for the eye, and a little ellipse for the eye at the top. Now I've gently put that in. And then we want here, you've got his collar, bit of a rectangle there for the collar, and now his head is going to go quite large. So you've got the shape of his face here, you've got the top of his forehead. I'm going to draw a box over for the angle. So there is a full box for pretty much the front of his face, but his back of his head goes even further over, and his ear, so I'm going to put a little box there for his ear, and then you can see the back of his head, and then we've got another box there, another rectangle shape for the top of his hair going down. And again, he's got a big forehead, so the top of his hair is there, there's a little indent for where the front of his hairline comes down on the top of his forehead. Now again, his eyes are pretty much centred from the bottom of where his chin is, which is going to come round here. So there, you know, you've got his eyes coming through. Just to the right of the centre line, we've got a triangle for his nose. And then we've got another. That's like a, you know, a slice of lemon shape for his mouth. The top lip is curved, but if you just put that kind of half of an ellipse, the slice of lemon, you know, it's like a long thin capital D. If you're looking at it from that way, the bottom of the D would be there. There you've got his mouth going right the way over, and his eyes obviously go there. So there's the centre line for his eyes, and you've got the top of his mask, which is halfway through. But again, you've got now the other side of this ellipse. This is Dash's eyes. So you've got like a capital C with a line on. That's that eye on that side. And then just come a little bit over on this side, and you've got the same thing. So you've got a C shape, and that's Dash's right eye. Now, you can see that his eye and his pupil, his iris and his pupil fill up all of that shape. And this one, it fills up even more. His pupil is pretty much nearly to the top. And so you haven't got, like on some of the earlier drawings, where all of the eye, all of the pupil and iris is inside the white of the eyeball. So that's there. And now again, over the top of his nose, we follow that shape around. We can draw a box here, right the way across, which will be the top of his mask. And that will then curve around, and you've got this top shape of his eye is going there, and again you've got a shape of his eye coming in there over the top of this eye. Again, just little C shapes. But again, we've got very, very quickly Dash's actual form and shape down in rectangles and triangles very quick, and we can add the detail on in a moment. But I'm just building up more construction lines. So the edge of his mask from his eye here, you then imagine you've got this big letter C coming to join here. So you've got this big letter C shape that comes around and joins to the side of his nose, and then it goes up over the top, slight curve as it goes around his forehead, right the way to the edge of his head. Now, from the edge of his nose, this line will kind of, imagine it joins up. It doesn't go through his nose, but nose and joins up underneath. So now we can do that right to the edge of his head, and you've got a little concave shape, a little sweep in there as the shape of his head comes down. Now again, I'm going to just build up this detail quite quickly. Now here on his nose, you got a little C for the side of his nose, and if you just think of a bird shape, and they'll be his nostrils. You've got the edge of his button nose coming down. It's a bit like an M. So you think the top of an M, bottom, and then another curve. Just think of like a bird flying kind of quick drawing that you do, but with a little flat bit at the bottom, and that's Dash's nose in place. Now you can put the top of his smile in inside that lemon slice, that C, and then we can do the same thing there. And you've got coming down from the centre of his nose, which is underneath his pupil, and you come down. But if you draw a line following the direction of his head, or the lean angle of his head, you've then got the centre of his teeth, and we can then just join up his big smile. And he's got the laughter lines, his crease lines at the top of his mouth. Again, there's the edge of that tooth, and we can just pull in that shape there for the shadow, and then we've got his other front tooth, and then the sides we just see there a little bit of a curve, and we're just filling in the detail inside of these big basic shapes very, very quickly. Now here, coming off the side of his mask down, we've got where his hair comes, and that goes straight up to just about where above the top of his line. So if you think in those, there's a box there, so you got the corner of his eye to the top of the mask and then go over, that's where his hair goes up, and that's pretty much vertical, straight up, and then it goes off at an angle following the direction of the lean of his head, and then that can then go to this little V point at the top. And again, that joins, if you go from his centre tooth right the way up, follow the line, that's where the little V point is in his hairline. Now again, we can then go out to the edge of his forehead, and then that curve comes down and joins the edge of his mask. Again, we've got his cheek coming out here. You can follow the shape around, and that comes down to his neck. Now his neck that goes in the collar is just inside the corner of his mouth, which is where we've got the edge of this shape for the collar, this little rectangle. Now again, we can just join that up and connect it, and then from the edge of his mouth here, you can just put a little curve outside, and that's his ear. And you can see it's in line already with his right hand ear, so his left ear is sticking out the side of his head. Now if we come over to this left ear, on the left hand of your paper is right ear, you can see how far that sticks out. And we've got to come down, and we've got the bit that goes out the bottom of his earlobe, and then just again imagine that big letter C coming down to underneath his earlobe, and then you want to come down to the edge of his jaw, and then joining the edge of his collar. So his collar goes round, and you've got a little C shape there going to the front, and you just want a little curve coming back round to where his collar goes up, and then you can join these 2 points up here, and you can see that it's pretty much down underneath his pupil. You go out to the edge, and that's the shape of his head already done. Now again, we can now follow the form of his head up, and where this little kick is coming out here is just over the top of his eye. So we're just kind of coming down a little bit from where this part is, where his hairline goes up at the front, and we can just follow that kick out. Again, remember hair, so if you go up to the top, do your lines brushing as if you were brushing the hair itself. So it's all swept back because he runs so fast, his hair has to sweep back in this kind of shape, following the flow of the wind over his hair, and you can draw that down to join at the back of this little point where he runs so quickly. Again, off to the side, the hair comes down, and that's Dash's head in at the top. Now we need to put in quite quickly some of the other details. So I'm going to draw in the circle for the top of the eye, and then follow the line of his chest. Again, on the actual ellipse, that's a D. You can see there it's a very simple D, thin at the top, thick at the bottom. So you can even put a little marker line, go out, draw another outer part of the D. Again, on this side it's going to be a C, so you draw the capital C coming round. In fact, that's got a little bit too far, I've just noticed, because it's just to the right of the centre line. So I've just rubbed out the centre line a little bit, so it's going to be inside there. So we can draw that and come inside. How far over is that? So, in fact, I've done it again. I need to go up to that top part, just because it's a little bit lower. So you need a bigger bit at the top. That's better. Coming down, and you've got the big part that comes down to a thin part at the bottom. So there's his eye. So now we need to push over his hand, because you've got a bit of a gap. You can see his thumb is level with the top of where the eye is, the circle on the eye. So there we've got a sausage for that thumb. This is kind of three-dimensional. and then we want his knuckles and his hand going round. So here we've got the back of his hand going up over to the top of all of his knuckles, and then you've got the 4 fingers. So you've got, that makes first finger, second finger, third finger, and they're just like little owls or little chevrons, little diagonal lines, and that makes up, and you can do the little finger, and that's how you put together that hand very quickly within that shape. It makes it really easy. Again, his wrist going to his elbow. So we've got, inside the rectangle that we drew, a bit of a kind of rugby ball shape. So we can go from his wrist then up to the top, around his forearm to his elbow, and then from underneath the thumb we can pull that down all the way round to join that elbow. Now you can see his left arm starting to appear and take shape. Now his shoulder raises up and just comes and joins that knuckle. So you just got a little curve there, and then you want a little line for the top of his arm, and then coming from underneath down, and you can see where his chest line is, comes from his thumb and comes down, hits the centre line, and then his tummy just curves a little bit, and then from underneath you can join the underneath of his left arm up to his elbow. Now if we follow this line out over for his right hand side, for his right shoulder, that comes out and goes down to the top of his forearm, out to the back of where his tricep will be, and you can see how his elbow comes out past his ear, but it's kind of in line with the middle of his hair. So I'm going to draw the curve of his elbow to match that part. Now again, you can see here how his glove is in this cone shape, comes down and comes down underneath the centre line, and we can draw the outside of his wrist down to his knuckle, and his hand with his little clenched fist is going up to the thumb, and you're just following the shapes that you've made. So you go out, but you can just see that little bend for his fingers as his hand's clenched, and then his knuckles, you can just do a little wiggle as you go round to where it joins. And you want his bicep where it joins the edge of his gauntlet and his glove. Now here you've got this lovely curve coming down to his belt, and his belt, even though I've got this rectangle, you can see how it's slightly curved, and you can see how it joins where his knuckle is. So you can put that little marker there, and it's going to join here. You just want a curve coming round. And the same thing, now his belt goes just outside of his tummy there, and you want a little curve there, and then follow the same line around, and there you've got his belt in, and then you're going to come down on his trunks. But we're going to fill this inside of from his right armpit down to his waistline, and you just got this nice curve. That's Dash appearing quite quickly with the full pencil line. So now we just need to get his trunks in. So again, you've got the height of the belt, and his trunks are kind of following that line down, and you need to come down there for the point from his Incredibles badge for where the front of his trunks are and the front of that leg. So you can do that curve right around to there. Now down this side of his trunks, and then you can curve that around, and you can see how that goes to make the shape of his trunks. Now his right leg is over his left leg right the way down to his boots, and so the boots are kind of a little bit more at the bottom part and much thinner as it tapers down. So what we need to do is, you can see I've just indicated his knees there, and we need to get this leg in, but you can see how the boot is just over the centre line, and this gives you your reference point quite easily. And so you draw that little, like imagine a full ellipse, but but you don't have to go around the back completely. You can draw your darker line on the front, and that gives you the outside of his boot for where his leg is going to go. And then you can just join those points up, like a little curve for the outer of his thigh. Here, the back of his bottom just comes down, and then his thigh goes out. And he's got really kind of chunky thighs because he's a fast little runner. And that comes down over his knee, where you get your quads on the top of your leg, going up your thigh, going right the way down. And here, his boot, his ankle of his boot, is just on this side of the centre line. And so we can draw that diagonal down, and then we can really pincer that down, so you've got this V inside the box that you made that joins the little shape that you made inside this bottom box for his boot. Again, right at the front, imagine the toes just slightly curved, and then join that line up at the top, and then his heel comes out the back and just a little bit at the side. Now this one is left boot. You've got the edge of his heel, and then it's not perfectly horizontal, so you've got the front of where his toes are, and you can see they are in line with, so I'm just going to rub that out a little bit. Come down from the edge of his trunks, that's where the front of his toe is, and you can go up and join the heel. And then the ankle, again, quite thin, but you can draw a slight diagonal down to the front of his toes. And the top of his boot is slightly above the back one, because his right leg is in front of the left leg, and you can just curve that round, and that's how you get that boot nice and easy. And just a little kink for his knee, and then you want his thigh coming out, following this line down to join right on the top. And there's Dash standing ready to just go. Now we need to put the outline in quite quickly. So I'm going to start at the top again. I'm just going to follow the line down of his hair and quickly put the outline in over all the pencil line that we've put down, and then we can fill in the shape and form with the colour. And that's the full family done when we've got Dash done. Again, do check out the playlist, the How to Draw playlist, because not only will it have all of these incredible drawings on, or Incredibles drawings, so there's underneath his nostril, it's got loads of others. I've done Secret Life of Pets, Toy Story, Inside Out, there's all kinds on there. Lego Batman, Lego Movie, there's over 100 videos on my How to Draw playlist. Again, remember, follow the shapes that you've put down. So here we're doing that kind of sea lemon shape, and his eye, remember to leave just a little bit of a highlight there. Now Dash has got quite pronounced shape above and below his eye slits in his mask, and that's great because it gives you a lot of form to play with. So there's the highlight, there's his pupil in, and then that goes up and over, and then you've got the bit underneath. Now we're going to do his smile, and remember, use the curve of your wrist, makes it easier when you're drawing inside the arc, because you're using the direction that your fingers and your wrist can actually go in. Now his teeth, front tooth, little curve there, and that's going to be the shadow. Now his cheek, I'm going to push that out all the way down to his neck, and then you've got his right ear coming down to his collar. Now I'm going to do his shoulders and go right the way over. Now I'm not resting my hand on, I've got my elbow off the board, off the drawing board, so that when you're doing a long line like that, use the pivot of your arm from your shoulder and your elbow will work with you, and your hand just lightly resting on will allow you to kind of glide rather than trying to use the shape that just your fingers can generate, like I'm doing here as I'm putting in the Incredibles logo. So remember, there's a C, thick at the top, thin at the bottom, follow the line of the C down for the Incredibles logo. So now we want his thumb. Remember, the knuckles go out, just little wiggles over the top. Second finger, third finger, fourth finger goes round the back. You've got a little extra bit just showing how it's folded underneath. Down to his wrist, and then right out to his elbow for his gauntlet. And that arm comes down, and you've got big shadow going down over his tummy, up from his chest. There you got going down to his back. Now we want his orange sash belt. Again, I'm not resting my full arm down, I'm using the pivot from my shoulder as I'm doing these longer lines, and I'm pushing from my shoulder and my elbow, not resting on the page. And again, it's just practice. Rather than practicing it on a drawing like this, just get a piece of paper and draw lines and shapes, not drawing anything, just lines and shapes, getting used to moving your arm from your elbow and your shoulder. And that's a brilliant way to develop your techniques. Again, I had a comment recently where someone's saying, how do you get everything in proportion when you're using the shapes? And it's only by drawing boxes, cylinders, cones, ellipses of all different shapes and sizes that you get used to drawing different sizes and shapes as you're going along. And when you do that, you actually get used to your hand and your eye coordination works together. So when you come to do something like Dash, like this, you've then got all of the shapes already in your hand and eye coordination. So when you want to do a box that size for his head and a box this size for this arm, a rectangle or a triangle for this gauntlet or an ellipse, you're kind of used to it, and you use the centre line to create the points to put you about on the page where you want to place everything. And again, as I did, I put the little mark at the top. It's like, right, I'm not going to draw past that point. So again, I'm just rubbing out now Dash, the scent, all the little construction lines inside, so that when I colour it in, it's clear. And there's a little, you can see little bits of the construction lines left on the outside. Now I'm going to start colouring in. Again, I'm using the red first, and I'm using the kind of lighter orange red. And I'm just filling in the shapes where the kind of highlights are quickly. Again, you could just use red and you could fill him in completely a kind of flat red colour, but I'm just using these cheap felt tip pens and some old pencil crayons that are actually over 25 years old, and they've just been sitting on my shelf for all that time. So I thought, oh yeah, they'll be quite good to use and have a go with. Again, I'm using this orange first, this kind of more orangey red. Filling in the shapes. Now we're using a slightly darker red, just get a little bit of fluff off the edge. We can fill in down the side of his chest and down his right arm. Again, I'm filling this in nice and quickly, and if you go slow you can obviously fill in much more neater and tidily, but this is just a vibrant, fun way of drawing. So I'm filling in down the shadow of that leg and down the outside of his right leg, so you got the shadow more down this side. I'm now going to use, again, check out a piece of paper. Yep, that's a more red, this bigger felt tip. I'm going to fill all the way in over there. And the more layers you actually put on, the more vibrant your colour can be. So I've quickly filled in all of the red. Now I got the yellow last time. I used this yellow, which is a bit darker than this one. So I'm using the correct yellow this time. So leave a white spot inside the top of the circle of the eye. Now that's gone a bit green because it's actually picked up either pencil or the felt tip pen, the black on it. But that's okay, because that's what happens with felt tips. So now I'm actually going to use the orange, because we want, I'm just making sure that this is orange. Yep, that's orange. To fill in the edge of the Incredibles, and then the same thing with Dash's belt. It doesn't matter if you've got little white bits showing, or you can just take your time and fill the lot in. Now we're going on to the pencil crayons, so I'm just going to use this flesh, and I'm going to fill in with just this basic flesh tone all of his head in kind of one similar full tone all the way over. I do this because we'll use other colours, and then we can even use this one and just press on a bit harder to create shape and form in a bit. So we'll go right over his nose, but this gives you the base to actually work from in regards of all of your flesh tone. So we can fill in all of the shape, and this is something that you can do. Like I say, you use simple colours, whether it's felt tips or crayons, and you can fill in your outline, even if it's just pencil, unlike I've done pen over the top as well. You can fill in your outline just flat, just have fun using your colours and your pencil crayons, and that's an absolutely wonderful thing that you can actually do. So now I'm going to use this blue at first. This is a lighter blue for Dash's eyes. And then I'm going to use this darker blue just to shade it in a little bit. Now it's kind of got grey, a little grey tinge. So I'm just going to go over both the blues now with this darker grey colour. And that's Dash's eyes just kind of quickly knocked in. Now he's got this blonde hair, so rather than just using yellow, I'm using this kind of off yellow ivory colour, and I'm brushing his hair in as if I was using a brush. I'm using the side of the pencil to put in the lines, so you can see how that will help give the impression of hair, because if you do it any old way, it won't look like hair. But actually drawing in the direction of the hair makes it look and work in your favour in that way. So now with his hair, kind of quickly, you can see I'm now going to go over that ivory. I'm using this lightly, this raw umber. So this side is all kind of shadowed and darker than here. You've got obviously the highlight fully coming in, so you don't want to obscure the highlight that's coming down right on the front of his head, on the top, over the top of his forehead. So again, I'm just following the direction of the way that his hair would go, and again, this is Dash, so he runs, it's kind of swept back because of the wind speed when he's actually running. But these lines give you all the basis, so if you do put other colour on top, it will show up. Again, I'm using this kind of more ochre brown now. Again, following the direction of his hair to give you that impression that it really is hair, not just colouring in any old way that you want. So that's his hair kind of blocked in there. Now I'm going to use this grey just to cool down this side of his head, because this side is more in shadow. And you can see how that's given it that much more three-dimensional look now, because the light's coming from this direction and you can utilise all of the colours that you need to make it work, giving you that three-dimensional form. But again, do remember, keep on drawing in the direction as if you were actually brushing the person's hair. And this is the same if you're doing a pet portrait as well. You can draw the fur of the animal in the direction that the fur actually goes. It'll give you a more realistic representation of your pet or the animal that you're actually drawing for somebody. So again, just have a go. You know, all of these techniques that I do on here shows you how to use them on cartoon characters, because that's how I started many years ago, and then I got into drawing pets for people and portraits and all kinds of things. And I did horse races, I did people's cats and dogs, I did birthday cards, I then even painted on t-shirts and jeans. And that's how I developed over the years as a young artist and a young teenager. Now again, he's got here, I mean down on his head he's got this like really nice blue highlight, but some of it shows up on his hair. So we need this kind of lighter grey over the blue. And you can just experiment with different colours of your pencil crayons on your drawing. So I'm just putting a little bit of grey in, and then I'm going to put in finally right at the top this white over the top of the hair. Now again, you can see there how quickly and easily you can fill in a large area of colour, and by using the pencil colours in a particular way. Now I'm still following this direction of the hair. I'm using the side of the pencil to fill in all of the side of that, and you can see how it's become three-dimensional. So you've got lighter here going over to the darker on this side. Again, I'm now going to do the same thing with this lighter one, just a little bit. That's just putting a bit of quick colour in. Now we did this, I'm going to leave little highlights on these fingers because it'll help to fill in. But you could use your pencil crayons to put the highlights on after if you fill it all in black. But I'm just going to leave a little bit of shape there. But as far as his going down to his elbow, I'm filling all this in with this marker, a big nib marker, just being a little bit careful going around the edge, and then you can fill in the centre nice and quick. And when we put the pencil crayon on at the end, that will give it the highlight and the form. But the fingers, just because the fingers are so close together, I'll leave those little bits of white showing. Again, around Dash's neck, I'm going to fill all of that in. On the Incredibles logo on his chest, fill all of that in. Now this hand, we could leave the white line, as I did do on earlier drawings, or we can just use the pencil crayons because the texture of them will put the highlight on over the top. Now again, these are just a cheap set of big markers. I got, about eight different colours. I think they were like £1 or £1.99. You're talking about $2.50, $3. And this is why I'm showing you how using simple, affordable materials you can still have fun and produce good art. Oh, listen to that squeak! That's great. Now again, his boots. I'm going to fill all of the boots in, and the pencil crayons will add the highlights. Now you could just fill in. I mean, there you can see that is Dash. Oh, I can tell. He has a white face mask on, not black like his boots. Just yet, they'll be black in a minute. So there's his left boot filled in. Here's his right boot. We need to fill in his mask. Now this pen's done a good few drawings and it's just starting to give up, but if you keep twisting it as you're drawing, it sucks out the felt tip from inside, and you can kind of see that it's wet when it first goes down, but it is running out a little bit. But I'm just filling in most of the shapes. I'm leaving a tiny little line because I'm going to use the pencil crayons to give form to his face mask. Again, I'm just being careful so that I don't go over. You can see this middle bit where the bridge of his nose is. It's actually got a highlight on, but I'm going to just fill it all in, and I'll put the highlight on using the pencil crayons in a minute. Again, as I keep drawing, the pigment from the pen is getting bitty, and all I do is just turn the pen slightly in my fingers as I'm going, and you get more of the pigment out rather than ending up with just a thick dry line. So there's Dash, all pretty much coloured in, and we just need to give him a little bit more form. So what I am going to do now is, we need his flesh colour for his head. Again, so you've got more light, the light's coming from this direction from above. So we can just deepen round the side underneath the hairline. Softly come out so you've got the highlight on his forehead. You can deepen that over all down the side of his nose and just slightly underneath his nose. Highlight right on the front, on the edge. Laughter lines around his mouth, edge going round to his ear. Now his chin, and you got this cheek coming out a little bit, going off his chin, coming down from his bottom lip down to the front of his chin, and then you got his jawline comes all the way round. So we need a lot more colour all the way down this side at first, all the way down underneath his chin, and we can fill that in right the way across to Dash's ear. Now, what we need, and again, I'll use this kind of ochre colour, but I'll kind of cross hatch it. So you've got his chin coming across here. Ochre, sorry, raw umber, dark brown. In my oil paints, it's called raw umber, this is, and it's an earth colour, so kind of think of a earthy, soily, dark brown. And I'm just filling this in quick. It helps give a little bit of form to Dash. And it is the shadow side where it's a little bit cool. Now, he has got a kind of bluey purple tinge. So again, all the way down here where I've just put that ochre colour. I'm going to run this purple, and this is underneath his nose, the side of his nose, his nostrils, underneath that cheek. We need to come all down the side of his head, over his right cheek, all the way down and under his chin. And that's starting to fill in that tone quite nicely. All of that ear is in that shadow. And we need that going again. Just increase it lightly. It's easier to add a darker tone than it is to take it away. Again, always remember that it's easier to add than it is to take away. So now down over the top of his lip, we just need a little bit indicating, and again, underneath his bottom lip, we can just indicate that slight tone. And again, coming up around that side. Now, I'm going to use the flash colour again and just build that back on top. And it just kind of smudges it all together quite nicely. And we build that up the side of his forehead. You can see you're getting more shadow increasing. Now I want the dark grey. Just to build that down and increase that colour again. Again, the wider range that you have of colours, you could actually have the direct right colour if you've got a very, very extensive range of pencil crayons. Now I haven't, so I've got to kind of wing it and make it up. I'm now going to use this kind of light pinky purple colour, bring that over a bit, and over the top of his cheeks and down the side, right the way down over this shadow. And this is something, you can kind of do this with watercolour. You build it up with layers and layers of colour, slowly. And the light reflects through all the different layers of colour. And that's what you do with watercolour paints or any kind of paints or colours that are translucent. And they work together to give you that different shade. Now I'm going to go back on top again with this kind of earthy brown, this raw umber. Because I've got all those other colours down, this should now, again I'm just kind of cross hatching, this should now increase the shadow intensity all the way down. Now I'm going to indicate his ear earlobe, like the lines inside the top of his ear and his earlobe inside. And then you've got that direct shadow line there, and we need to increase that all the way up there. And that's just using pencil crayons, nice and simply. Again, you can get pastels as well in kind of pencil form, and you can blend those so much easier. Right, I'm now going to put in this kind of slightly nutty brown. I'm just experimenting with the colours. Now, he's got here a very sharp blue highlight that's coming in, so I'm putting the blue in, and then I'm going to go over the top of it, top of the blue, with this white, just to increase that. Now, finally, I'm going to just try and darken all of that down with a little bit of a black, but I'm not pressing on hard at all with the black, just so that it doesn't destroy all the colours that are underneath. So it's just using this to try and unify all the colours that you've already put down, and it just increases that shadow. And all the different colours that you've mixed together. Again, don't press on very hard, otherwise you'll get a solid black line, and that'll destroy everything that you've done. So now I want this brown in his hair, just to indicate a little bit stronger. Again, remember, I'm going in the same direction that the hair would be brushed. Now I'm going back over the top for some highlights using this kind of pinky purple right over the top of the black that you've just put down. Bit of a reflected highlight there. And then if I fill that in all the way over, fill in all over his ear, you can see how you're getting this kind of colour working together to make the shadow on the side of his head. And again, just experiment with colour. As I'm just having a go and I'm just trying different colours and just adding another little layer and another little layer, you just try it yourself. Again, I'm using this kind of nutty brown now to intensify the shadow a little bit. And again, underneath his nose, and the side of his nose, up to the side of his head. And it's all the layers of pencil crayon that go together that make it work. And the more you experiment with, the more you'll learn what you can do with all the different colours. And then you can even start experimenting with other colours. And I know a top portrait artist whose videos I've watched, he lives in America, named Cesar Santos, and you'll find him on YouTube. And when you watch his portraits, he actually mixes so many different amazing colours. So he puts little bits of green in the bags under the eyes and down the sides of the head, and it just gives little cool flourishes of colour, which are amazing to see. And you can see this in old master portraits. Even the nostrils on some old master portraits have got a real... In fact, I'll do this on Dash now. So I'm just putting like a little flash of red in. It just makes his nostrils look so much better. I hope you're enjoying this. I am. This is great fun. But this is why I enjoy doing these kind of videos, because I get to experiment and show you little tricks and techniques, because it's so much different than doing my normal oil paintings. And it's just such fun to let go and experiment with different colours. And then I'll go back into my oil paintings, check out the oil painting time lapses. I'll go back into them and mix other colours in, which I do anyway. I always put reflected colours in and different colours that, say, in the surrounding areas of whatever the subject is I'm painting. I put those colours in and it makes it look different. So there's Dash's head looking pretty groovy. Now we're going to just do some quick work on Dash's teeth. We need a bit of grey down there. And we can just put this on either side. The light's coming from this side, so just to the left of each tooth you can put this kind of grey. And the lip is causing the shadow, so this far tooth is completely grey. And then the shadow, I'm going to use this kind of ivory colour, and I'm just gently at the bottom. It's not that he's not been brushing his teeth, it's just that his reflected flesh will give a different tone. It won't just be perfect white. So again, I'm just putting a bit of blue in that shadow. And now what we need is, I'm going to put this kind of pink colour first, and then red. Put that red right at the edge. Now it's not black. Now I'm going to go over that red with this earthy brown colour, and the same up in the shadow up in this left hand corner of his mouth, right the way up. Because if you just put black like this, it'd just be flat, but the colour gives it warmth. It gives the shadow depth and warmth. Now again, the side of his eye, I think it's curved, so you're going to have a white highlight here that's going to be whiter here. I'm just going to put a little bit right in the corner, but this side's in shadow, same here. So I've just shadowed that down a tiny little bit. Now even his eyes, I'm just going to use just to darken it down around the edge of the iris, that earthy colour. And it just makes a little tiny little bit of difference. And again, we're now getting close. So we're going to fill in with the side of the red pencil over all of Dash's top. So I've used all of that felt tip. And the reason I'm using the two together is you can see anyway all these streaky lines of the felt tip. And unless you've got very expensive markers, you can't actually fill in good solid colour just using felt tips. Now again, you'll see that with, if you check on the how to draw Pokemon videos, check in the how to draw playlist, and I did Pikachu, Jigglypuff and Dragonite just using the cheap felt tips that I used on this, just to see what are they like to actually have a go. And you get these streaky lines, whereas you can get some very expensive professional marker pens and they will fill in and you pretty much won't get streaky lines. Whereas now, going over the top with this, and if you just used the pencil crayon straight off, you'd have the same thing. You would have streaky lines and not a full filled solid colour. Now straight away you can see how quickly that's just filled in and you've got a really good solid base. Now I need an orange highlight and I'm going over the top of that one because he's got this kind of highlight coming down this side of the leg and even all the way across his chest, right the way across the top, rather than it just being direct orange, because you've got the red underneath, it gives it that slightly warmer tone. Now I'm going to really scratch on some yellow on the top of that felt tip, because the felt tip just obliterated everything. And again, I'm just whacking a little bit of yellow in, even on top of the orange that I've just put down, because again, it'll just lift it a tiny little bit. We've got these highlights here, you've got a highlight there coming up. But what we need is, and I've just got my hand filled with the pencils. You know, just hold them, or you can have them if you've got enough space on your desk in front of you. You can just hold the lot. Again, he's got this highlight. I'm just gently using the white to indicate a bit more of the highlight, and down this side of his chest. Yeah, this kind of really strong light that's going all the way up his chest, and it comes all the way down here and down his leg, right down the centre. And you can just see there's a little bit of a whiter line just appearing, and what will happen is when I put the dark shadows in, that'll help those to stand out too. So right, I've put that down. I'm now going to use, I'm going to try a colour, this kind of more purpley red, to indicate a bit of that shadow line on his chest, and then go back with the full red. That's better, to fill all of that in. Now I'm going to fill in under this arm and the top of that arm. Again, this is the thing, just experiment with the colours. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, because art is about capturing a moment and a mood. And the more colours you use, the more mood you can develop in your actual art. And that's something that only experimentation and making mistakes. My wife, if you check out Sharon Bill on YouTube, she's a piano tutor, and she says, and so many other piano tutors say, that practice is not a performance. It should sound bad. And that's something that you can embrace. Learn to make mistakes. Now, we've got this orange belt, so I need to increase some of the shadow down here using the red on top of the orange. And again, in the centre bit where the shadows just come down, and then even over on this side. So I've got a nice yellow line right across the top. So where's my orange pencil crayon? There's the orange. I'm going to fill that in. And then right on the edge. And then I need this chestnutty brown. Now I'm not putting blue on this bit because I've put the yellow and the orange, the lighter orange down on there. If you put blue on, it will go green. So now I need a much darker brown for the deeper parts of the shadow, and that'll indicate there. And then if I go back in with the reddy orange right over the top, I'll smudge all that together, and you've got a good bit of 3D form appearing on Dash's belt. Finally, just bring that back in with the orange, And now we need to intensify down the darker shadows, and I need my deep blue. So here we have, I've got the deep blue, and I'm going to go, and red and blue make a kind of deeper purple. Not Smoke on the Water like the band. Do 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 do. You'd know that tune if you're of a certain age. You will come across it in your life as well. Just Google Smoke on the Water Deep Purple, and if you ever play guitar, it'll be one of the first riffs you ever learn to play. So I'm now, like I've done before, using the blue to indicate the shadow areas quickly. And remember, it's about building up layers of colour. So here on the top of his shoulder, I'm gently rubbing that in, the blue. And again, this purple that I kind of put in, I'm just following down, because there's more shadow on this top part here. And then you come down under his arm. And then you've got right on the edge of his elbow, going up, and you've got the fold line there. Again, on his leg here, if I come down right inside the leg, that's where most of the shadow is going to be. But we just got, you can just indicate a little bit over the top of that, and just inside the fold there's a little bit, so just gently you can use the blue on top of that. Again, I'm now going all the way down the right hand side of his right leg, right the way down, and I've quickly just put that in. Just noticed I am going to feed that out just to join up the shadow there, so that kind of mixes and works together. So you can see there's a lot more form just appeared into Dash. Now over the top of the blue I'm using the red again, and I'm smoothing that out right on the edge, and then just right over the blue. And then again down this blue, right down the right hand side of his leg, onto that highlight. You can see he's really getting some form now. Now I'm going to use the black. I'll start with this leg, and I'm just, kind of medium pressure pushing that in, and then I'm not going right to the edge. You've got two kind of darker lines coming down, so I'm inside just using the black pencil crayon, and I'm filling in and feathering it out gently. Now again, right here, so you've got dark right underneath his armpit, and that comes out and then comes down just inside, and I'm feathering again gently. And you've got these two kind of lines of shadow, and then it'll be a bit lighter inside. And you just see how the light falls on the form of people. Again, right next to where his chest goes, that's a dark line, right underneath there, but then gently feather that up. Same on this elbow, you've got a darker line inside. And that's how you can build the intensity of the colour. I'm now going to increase the red, and I need to build this up, and now I can increase the highlight that's on his red costume. So again, I'm just gently feathering all the way down, and you've got this going onto his belt now, and then we can do the highlights on the actual black parts that we filled in. So that comes over the top, I'm bringing highlight right the way over. So you got, like I say, you can see that stronger highlight coming up and over his arm, over to the top of his arm, up his chest and over onto his arm. Again, off on his forearm. Now, I'm going to use this slightly darker grey at first. Now Dash has got, as you can see from his nose, you've got a bit of a triangle here, and you can increase that with the grey. Now again, I've left these white parts just so as you can follow the lines quite easily. Underneath, it's got a highlight, again right on the bottom of his mask. Again, this is the more shadowed side, so you've only got the highlights on this side a little bit more, but there's a few just kind of down, and you can just indicate them. Again, his gloves, you can fill in the white bits with the grey, and then we can add much more intense highlights. So coming down, you've got the highlight going up and all the way along the side of his glove, his gauntlet up to his elbow. You can increase that, and that gives him some form straight away. And then I'm going for what you call a mid-tone. Again, down the edge of this gauntlet, going down up over his thumb, down over to the front of his knuckle. So you got this mid-tone coming down. Now again, this is a more blue one down here, and we'll deal with that in a moment. Back of his boot, going up, and then just gently on the front of his boot. Again, same thing here, down this side, just down the side, all the front of this boot. Leave right at the front of the toe, and you can fill all of that plane in there, that shape, that square, because all the light's hitting right on the top. And then just up the side of that boot. Now, his trunks, you've got this highlight just coming down, following, but it's not as pronounced as these ones are going to be. It's not reflective. This is just a soft fabric, so you don't want a sharp white highlight going down there. And we can use that grey for a bit of highlight there, and we've got a highlight coming down here that will be blue, and we'll kind of build that up in a second. Now I'm going to get the red, and I'm going to put a little bit of reflected red up here. Oh, bit of grey first, missed on his collar. So a little bit of grey on the Incredibles logo and all the way across the centre of that collar. Again, as I said, I'm just going to drop in some red underneath his chin. And that's just a nice little bit of reflected colour off his top here. And it just makes a little bit of a difference. So again, just be willing to experiment and have a go. Again, I'm going to put red into his trunks, just so as it makes a little bit of a difference. And again, underneath this gauntlet, and even on this gauntlet as well. So I've put that red in down there. Now I'm going to put in, it's got this quite strong blue highlight down the side, all the way down this side of his leg and down the side of this boot. So we've got a little bit of blue that you can just indicate on. There's none in this leg because that's completely shadowed as it's closed up against his leg. Again, we've got a nice blue highlight underneath this gauntlet going down the edge of his thumb and the fingers. And then this gauntlet, you got nice solid going down all the way down to his hand, but then just soften it off. Again, we can just increase that. Now, this should really start to lift Dash up for you. These are the really strong highlights now. Remember, such an easy thing to do using the pencil crayons on top. They'll draw the highlights on for you like that, so you can see how his glove all of a sudden just explodes off the page. Again, I'll draw that one on there, and the white is much more intense towards his wrist, and you can soften that off going back towards his elbow. Right on the top and on the side. Now, he hasn't got really sharp highlights on the top of his mask, but you can just increase a little bit on his nose and a little bit above his eye, there and there. Now, again, you can fill in these other bits once you've done that. Get your black pencil crayon and you can actually fill in any shapes or white highlights that shouldn't be there. So again, underneath his eye, you can fill that in, and that gives him much more that air of mystery of the superhero that he is. Albeit a child superhero, he's still a superhero. So we can fill in the black all the way up to the top, increase the knuckles. We can now get rid of those little white bits there. We can soften off that grey. And again, same thing on this glove down here. We can increase that. Now we're just down onto the boots. We can get the white highlight. He's got a full white highlight down the side, a little ting where it's the pivot between the top of his boot and his ankle, top of his foot and his ankle, and that is looking pretty groovy, is our dash. So now these are little, you can just play and mess about as much as you want. Because you've got the reflected highlight, you can just put these orange ones in here, reflected off the colours of his waistband and his actual superhero suit. But yeah, I'm just having a final fiddle and twiddle to just enjoy these colours, and ultimately you decide when you want to stop, and it is just a choice. You can decide when you want to call it a day and stop filling in all of the colours. But I must say, I think that's pretty good and groovy. Using simple techniques and felt tips and old pencil crayons to come up with a pretty good drawing of Dash. Now, I'm just going to go back in with a felt tip to indicate the fingers a little bit on this image of Dash. Again, same thing here. We've got, just to increase the actual sharpness of some of the black lines right the way across. And there you go. I hope you've enjoyed that. I've really had fun doing the family so far of The Incredibles. And again, just do like and subscribe, please. Check out all the other how to draw videos of all the other Incredibles and all the other subjects that I've done. But using those simple techniques, you can draw Dash or any other character or anything you want to. Just have a go and try to develop your skills to do a drawing like that. Now again, that's been about 45-50 minutes to do this, from first pencil line through to full colour in. Now again, the more time you take, the better and more detail you can actually put in. But I hope you've enjoyed that, because I certainly have. Again, enjoy your drawing, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, ta-da.